Anin buju nin samakade benise migzi do dem sagging nindunji. I did introduce myself in the Ojibwe language. Hi, it's Jaime. And in Ojibwe, I had said the name that the spirits know me by is Black Thunderbird. I'm of the Eagle Clan, and my family is from Sagging First Nations. So I'm just starting off with a smudge with some sweetgrass. It's a kindness medicine. The reason why I'm using this for a smudge today is because I had a friend actually ask me for this video to talk about the abalone shell. So the shell that I sometimes hold up at the beginning of my videos to say, oh, none as much for you. I want to talk a little bit about what are they, where they're from, and the significance in traditional indigenous culture. So these are called an abalone shell, and they are a marine mollusk that are closely related to snails. So just looking at the shape, it's roughly an oval shape, and it's kind of flat by comparison to a typical snail shell. So a land-based snail shell would actually have more of a spiral-shaped whorl on their back, looked more like a ball, flat on two sides and rounded on the top. And it sits just the way that this one does. The head would be over here with its little antennae, and the body housed in kind of the more rounded part toward the back. So if I were to pick this little guy up and the snail is still in there, we could see the little head just right here, and you would actually see the underside of the belly of this snail. So this would be referred to as a dorsal shell, as opposed to a scallop shell, for example, that opens up like that. It has just a top shell and that's it. And then you have these little nubbins. Those are actually breathing holes, ventilation holes. As the snail grows, it closes off these old holes and it generates, or it builds new ones as it grows. So this one had 4 open holes and was well on its way to forming a new hole so that this one would close as it grew and no longer needed that one. That's also how they reproduce. They send out their eggs and everything that way. The coloring of the shell. So this one, obviously larger, you can see it is kind of pinkish, and you can even see there's a stripe of white in there, a lighter color. And you see the difference between the lighter color and the darker color. That could have been because as this creature moved along the ocean floor, it might have actually been eating something different, causing a bit of a color variation. There's hundreds of varieties of this type of mollusk, and depending on the variety, depending on their food diet, the color may vary significantly. So this is a much smaller shell. As you can see, only 3 breathing holes are open. You can see the little nubbins from the previously now closed ventilations. And on the inside, you can see, obviously I have smudged in this shell, but not in this one. But the inside is lined with something called nacre, or mother of pearl, and it's an iridescent kind of look. And depending on how you tilt it, you can see purple, blue, green, pink, and it varies, and it's a nice reflective shiny surface, and that's kind of what makes it fireproof. So the way that they grow, it's almost like a brick-like structure. So you imagine 2 parts meeting up, and then there's a layer over top, and then on top of that would then be another section, the exact same way bricks are laid. Although the shell does get rather hot, it's still considered a fireproof surface because you can see this nice shiny stuff it's a smooth surface. I've scraped away the soot from previous smudges, and you can see in that section there I did it as well. And I'm just taking a spent match, and you can see a little bit of squeaky, but you can see that the shell is still very much intact and still very smooth under there. The ashes are just sitting on top of it, collected on top. And it's that shiny surface that has really made the abalone shell, another or a more common name could be known as the ear shell, because it's kind of shaped the way our ear is shaped and has that ridge along the top, just like our ear does. They represented wealth, because if you had these shells and you're in the middle of the prairies, it meant that you had significant resources and to be able to trade enough to satisfy that person who would have brought it a great distance from the Pacific Ocean, either through the mountains or around the lower portion of the mountains, to trade for that item alone. So those are some of the reasons why it's very popular. It's thought to represent the balance between fire and water. So obviously there's a marine shell, means that they live in the ocean, and then fire, because like as you see in this shell, I've obviously smudged with this shell a fair amount, and it's a symbol of water that, how would I say this, it helps wash away unpleasantness and darkness, and to help ward that off whenever we're using them in traditional ceremony. And they're pretty sturdy. Like, if I really try, I could break it. I don't want to break it, but just pinching it, it feels thin, but it feels sturdy. So sharpening this edge up, you could actually use it as a scraper on hide if you really wanted. And as it flaked away, you know, it would just be getting smaller and smaller. But also, if it was in smaller pieces, if it did happen to get broken, you could still use it. You could make a bead, or you could adorn jewelry with pieces of this, and it looked really pretty because of the iridescent shiny bits on it. So those are the best things I can think to mention about what are these shells, where they're from, and their uses or importance or significance in traditional indigenous culture. So just a quick thanks to Ian for reaching out and asking for this video. And to anybody who gets to watch it, hope you enjoyed. Hope you have a great day. Talk to you again.